Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. It's Friday afternoon, and I'm here to discuss Celtic for the next hour with Jim. Jim, welcome back to the show. It's been a couple of weeks. How's your ear? Is it all right? Yeah, working. Good man.
Thanks. I think so. Can you hear me?
You sound and look phenomenal, Jim. How has the start of the season been treating you? How have you felt that the games have gone? First couple of games.
I haven't played great. St Mirren game, bit of a slog. Got there in the end. Aberdeen game, bit of a slog, I suppose. 2 bits of quality with Kieran Tierney, Ryan Hatate. So I think we feel good about ourselves because of what's happening across the city. I think they've obviously slipped up in the first couple of games. So that's with their control. Because they've not done very well, maybe it makes us feel a wee bit better, but we have to kind of guard against that because, we've only got to look back to Ange's first season where he struggled the first few games. He back to Wim Janssen struggled. So I think it's early days. Yeah, I wouldn't get too carried away just now with the league position. Let's wait for maybe after Ibrox and maybe see where we are there. But yeah, it's been an okay start to the season. Obviously, still disappointed about lack of signings, but I'm sure we'll come on to that in a minute. But yeah, I think the 2 games, the sort of big thing for me was the fact that I hadn't tested the goalkeeper that much. We didn't have many shots in target in both games. It's early days, so let's try and be positive. Let's not be negative.
Well, the thing with that, again, I'm going to go back to this, Jim. I just feel that in terms of negativity, this word that constantly gets used, it's a word that I think is getting used online when someone doesn't agree with you and they want to close down your argument, they call you negative, even though that the points you're making are pertinent points. They're points about trying to be the best you possibly can be as a football club. And people just say, oh, you're being negative because they want to shut down your argument. Negativity for me is a young footballer signing for Kilmarnock, signing her first ever professional contract at 16 for Kilmarnock and getting absolutely hounded on Twitter. That's negative. That's real negativity. That's absolute knuckle-dragging negativity. Jim, did you see that yesterday? Did you see that?
I saw something this morning. I think that's social media, basically. So unless social media do something about that, that'll always happen. I mean, if these knuckle draggers, as you described them there, they wouldn't do that in the street. They wouldn't do that to her face. They wouldn't do that if an old man was standing beside them. So there has to be some sort of accountability on social media that, if you go into something like X, maybe you have to put your real name in there, maybe your real photograph on there, maybe where you live, not your actual address, but, Steve Robertson from Celtic type of thing, and there's his picture. And he would have to face the consequences of that. The fact there's no consequences, and people do this all the time, and you'll experience that more than most. When you do something that people will just pile on about something you've done without actually knowing the background or why you're doing something or whatever. And yeah, I've been on here nearly 5 years now. So some people tend to agree with what you say, so you're a good guy. Some people tend not to agree, so you're a bit of an idiot. So but you can have water off a duck's back for somebody like me, a 66-year-old man, but terrible for a young girl, 16-year-old, and I'm sure that's like all over Twitter now, and there'll be tons of views and all this kind of stuff. So it's just horrible. And people who do that, I'd imagine they must have a mother, not they have sisters or aunts or nieces or whatever. Just idiots. Just idiots.
Yeah, you're right, Jim, and it is unfortunately a huge part of online activity, and in particular social media, and in particular the X platform, formerly Twitter, where it's a free-for-all. And I've said before, I totally agree with you, Jim. If you're going to use these things, there needs to be a verification process of identity that obviously isn't disclosed elsewhere. But it means that when you set up an identity and a profile on one of these pages, you can be held to account, because there has been occasions in the past of racial hatred crimes being investigated by the authorities, etc. So I do think we've got to protect people, and I've seen it on Axom. I've seen it with, in particular, Jim, the female members of our team being targeted, and that was horrific for everybody who was involved in that. And then yesterday, as we've said, there, young player Skye Stout, who had signed her first professional contract with Kilmarnock, and we're trying to look at equality in football, is it worse against females? I would say it probably is. I think that
100%,
the abuse
100%,
is horrendous, Jim. It's horrendous.
Also, the fact that if you're going to, I mean, I agree with a bit about X obviously knows who these people are. So when things like this happen, it has to be easier to A, identify them, B, hammer them, and C, make it public. So pick, I don't know, young girl's mother, young girl's father goes on to X, picks up whoever's been the worst, reports that to X exposes it. The guy, and I'm pretty sure it's a guy, gets charged and gets fined 10 grand or something like that. And you expose that and you say, there's the example. You want to do that, those are the consequences. There are no consequences. And if there's no consequences, that's what will happen. And people use the people, I'm sure not that I look at the chat room, but the people in the chat room from time to time will say offensive things. Right? But it's not their name. Of some daft made up name. There's no consequences to that. So you, from my point of view, water off a duck's back, too old for this, but for a young lassie trying to play football, that being exposed, that's really, really damaging, really damaging. And as I said, because of X and the way that works, the chances that that's been viewed by, you'll know better than me how many people have viewed that by now, and it'll be a lot. Yeah,
I know. No, you're spot on, Jim. And it's right for us to point it out. And obviously, Sky, I hope, is getting all the support that she needs as a young woman breaking into football. And again, I think Kilmarnock need to come out and be big on this and make a statement on that same platform that this is completely...
Hunt somebody down, yeah, absolutely hunt somebody down. Just pick one of the worst ones and hunt that person down. Expose that person, take them to court and fine them a lot of money. And hopefully that will get the message across. Because if you don't do that, then the next young lassie that comes on the scene and people want to pile on there, then the same thing. She'll never solve the problem.
No, you're right, Jim. I totally agree with you. And all the best to Sky, and I hope she has a fantastic career and she overcomes this early bullying and harassment and intimidation, because that's what it is. Yesterday, we spoke about, well, we never, but Brendan spoke about Tiegate, Jim. I know that the people in the fashion world call you Jim Dior rather than Jim Orr, because you do always have an eye.
That's me.
Yes, sartorial elegance.
Yes.
You've always got an eye on the catwalk, the Milanese catwalk. And you probably would have noticed that Brendan Rodgers wasn't wearing a tie against Aberdeen. What a palaver. What a palaver. Is that where we are? We're so desperate that we're looking for signs in his neckwear to see what his mood is. Unbelievable.
That's the world in which we live in. Where just people need to get a life, basically. People need to do something. I mean, if you think, just going back to the story about that young girl, obviously these people are leading their best lives. Going on a social media platform and bullying someone, obviously they've got some life. Basically, that's what they're doing. I don't know, people have got too much time in their hands, or they're not using their time more effectively to do things that they could be doing. And when they get a bit old, we get to my age and they look back, what have I done in my life? I spent half my life on social media slagging young lasses. You've lived your best life. Yeah.
You're right.
The tie thing is just a good example of that, because people have nothing better to say. And people need to do things. People need to get out there and do stuff. One of my kind of mantras is just do things. Don't talk about things. Do things. Make a contribution. Make a difference. Do something. You can have your kind of downtime and do your bits and pieces, but do something. Don't spend your time. Don't spend time watching podcasts. Don't spend your time sitting glued to a laptop or your phone or whatever. Just go and volunteer your time. Be good. This is my public service message today. Volunteer your time. Go out and help people. You'll feel better for it.
No, you will, Jim. You will. And in terms of spending your time properly, obviously at 12:30 every single weekday, what you should be doing for an hour is watching us on Axom. So thanks everybody for doing that. Over 1,000 on this Friday afternoon. There's a game tonight. I was just pointing out earlier on, actually, on the socials, that today, because we've got the game, we've got right now what we're doing right now, Jim. Plus, we've got This Is Axom at 6 o'clock this evening, where we collaborate once again with Celtic World Order. It's Paddy and Steve-O this time round. Very good show. 3 and a bit hours of free award-winning content coming out of the Axom stable today, Jim. So subscribe to the channel. You'll get it all for naught. You might even be in with a chance of winning this jersey behind me. I'll speak a wee bit more about that in a few moments, because that is properly Jim Orr's era of the Brat Pack. Listen, Jim, I was reading this morning that there's going to be a Wim Jansen Cup. It's going to start, the very first one will be on the 12th of October. I think, although this is the inaugural one, it may well be an annual event of Feyenoord and Celtic legends coming together to pay tribute to the one, the only Wim Jansen, who obviously would know all about the original of this jersey behind me. Wim Jansen Cup, I love that kind of thing, Jim. I think it's good to have friendships with other teams, and it's great to remember the great permy-haired, shell suit wearing Wim Jansen.
Yeah, I think if they're doing things for charity, then that's good. That's a good thing. As long as it goes to charity and it's not some sort of other kind of money.
It's the foundation. It's the Feyenoord Foundation. Yes.
Cool. Okay. So if it's as long as it's for that, then absolutely fine. Yeah. And I like these things. I mean, I think it gives an opportunity for people who don't go to the games to go to the game without going to that kind of hobby horse of mine that unless it's a competitive game, the juices don't flow particularly much. But certainly, yeah, and a chance to maybe see people. Because I've seen all these people just thinking there that who is it? Maybe was it young Patrick never seen Sean Maloney type of thing, So that's if you've never seen Sean Maloney play football and he plays in a Legends game, there's it's a different older, faster Sean Maloney. But there he is, there's Sean Maloney or his Vinegar or Hessling or whatever. So it's a good opportunity to see some of the names of the past. And if Henrik one would imagine Henrik would turn up given his association with both teams. So that should draw people there straight away. So good.
You would hope so. Yeah, you would hope Henrik would be involved. I think thinking Feyenoord and Celtic, what other players played for both clubs? Bobby Petter, Reggie Blinker also. And of course, the aforementioned Henrik, the King of Kings. Thanks everybody for getting involved in the comments. So sorry, Jim, you were going to say?
Just not such a big draw. That's all. Bobby Petter's playing. Oh my good. Okay, fair enough.
Bobby and Reggie. There must be
Bobby
other.
Reggie. That sounds like some 1960s Motown.
Bobby and Reggie, yes, or a couple of doormen at the Phoenix Nights nightclub. There we go. Get your comments in. We're going to be talking, obviously recruitment will come into it. Brendan Rodgers has been speaking even more about recruitment, and he has said, Jim, that Celtic are notorious for doing their business late. Notorious, that doesn't sound great. What's your feelings on this? Because I absolutely get the fact that we are doing a lot of work behind the scenes. I get it. There's whole departments working on this. The thing that frustrates me is just getting that business done to the level that Brendan wants, because I'm not just looking at this season. I'm always looking ahead. I'm always looking at the next season. I'm more than aware of the fact that Brendan Rodgers, his contract is up at the end of the season. Dyson Maeda is entering the last 2 years of his deal, which is that kind of spot in your Celtic kind of career, in your contract, where you're thinking we need to get a new deal there. JD, that wasn't a clickbait tagline. It was simply saying it's time for the board to bring in 4 quality signings and new deals for Rodgers and Maeda. And if we do that, I think everything will be really, the whole mood, the whole dynamic will completely change. Headline actually had you thinking that they'd both sign new deals. Well, you know what? Maybe if we put that out there, they will, JD. And I'm hoping that that's the kind of things that were discussed when Dermot Desmond was over for the Newcastle game, Jim. We need to get this business done, don't we?
If you say that 3 times it happens, is that what you were thinking there?
What was the film again? Candyman. Candyman, wasn't it? Beetlejuice. There was another one.
Beetlejuice. So, like I've said that, I've been saying this since the start of the summer, so I wouldn't say this. I don't want to repeat the same thing again. We've failed miserably to back the manager. Next week's too late. Following week's too late. We might get through. And I'm going to repeat what I've said every single time on here about on-field success masking off-field inefficiencies, basically. Why do we feel good at the moment? We can feel good because our opposition and main rivals have dropped points. That's why we're feeling good. Nothing that we've done. We've won a couple of games that we should win. We've not been spectacular. We've done enough to win the games. St Mirren game, we left it to the death. But we're feeling a bit better about ourselves because we're 4 points clear. Not because of what we've done, but because the opposition have failed to do it. And if we don't qualify for the Champions League, not to be negative, there'll be a tsunami of outrage is going to come. And we know the reasons why we won't qualify. Should we not qualify? is because we haven't backed the manager at the right time. There's no point backing the manager the last day of the transfer deadline. We could be top of the league. We could have qualified for the Champions League. But we've done that the wrong way, basically. And if I'm the manager, like any manager, you want players in and you want them in as soon as possible to give you the best possible chance of success. And we are weaker now than we were at this time last year.
Yep.
We're weaker than we were 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And given the fact we've got whatever the number is, £100 million sitting in the bank, it's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. And I don't know who's responsible. And I saw in the group chat, the Acsom group chat, sorry, Yogi Junior was saying that it's down to Desmond. He's the guy that's kind of sticking there. But whoever's responsible, there's always no accountability for this.
I know. Yeah.
You know, so should we, and I think it's a 50-50 case with this Champions League playoff. Because of where we are, I don't know what the opposition are like, but they're well into their season, apparently. They put out Slovan Bratislava, who are no mugs. It's not as if we're playing a team from Gibraltar or whatever. So we should be going in there with the strongest possible team, and we should have had results. And what I said last time, I'll say that again, basically. My theory would be that every transfer window you bring in 2 new players, right, to be first starters, to push 2 of your players onto the bench, to make them fight harder for their place. Every transfer window, I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to do. If you lose one, you bring in 3, and you do it every transfer window.
Absolutely.
We've not done that. So what we now find is that we're having to, the same players having to go to the well time and time again, and the reinforcements are not of that quality. So if we do get a couple of injuries, we're going to struggle. And the fact that we're playing people like Yang, and the fact that people are saying things like, give Dean Murray a game, and you're thinking, and James Forrest should be a starter. No disrespect to James Forrest. We shouldn't be here. And we are here. And so we've failed. Hopefully we qualify for the Champions League. Hopefully we're going to win the league. I'm not trying to be negative because you started the show, but people have been negative. I am just telling you what I see.
It's not negative, Jim. This is the thing. People throw that. Yeah.
So I am looking at where we are just now, and we are demonstrably weaker than we were last year. Isn't that acceptable? No, it's not. Of course it's not. Hopefully we've got the manager who can turn things. We don't have to turn anything around. Hopefully we've got the manager who can get through this Champions League qualifier. But if I'm the manager just now, I am furious with what's happening. And I'm not willing to accept, it's a difficult window. And I want to talk about there's players who are waiting to see if we qualify. Move on. Move on. You have to be in control of the situation. That's like the Eddie Howe situation. We're waiting for Eddie. We're going to Eddie. Eddie doesn't come. We're scrambling about. Unfortunately, we get Ange. But if somebody's saying, if you get in the Champions League, then I'll join you. No thanks. Move on. You've had your chance, pal. It'll be your loss. It'll be your loss. Because you don't want to play in front of 60,000 people every second week. We're playing in Europe in some shape or form. We will, put you in the short window. If you don't want that, move on and go for the next guy. And when people talk about ticking all the boxes, for me, that's a box to tick. If somebody says, if you've got Champions League football come, he hasn't ticked the box, move on. So I think we have to, and we've let the manager down. Whether you think the manager's good, bad, or indifferent, we have so much let that manager down. And again, whether you like him or not, we're not going to get a manager as good as that again. I don't think. With his pedigree, his experience, his knowledge, and we're letting him down. And we let him down last time.
Yes.
And it was him that got the brunt of it. But the same thing, I think, I don't know all the facts, obviously, but on the outside looking in, you think this is repeating itself again. And it's avoidable. And if it does happen and he does walk, nobody could blame him. Nobody could blame him.
The big difference, and I'm going back to your tsunami analogy, but the big difference this time around, Jim, is that if anything was to happen untoward in terms of the future of this manager, the fans, for me, and you can disagree in the comment section, the fans, I think, would be far more on the side of Brendan Rodgers than the last time. He walked out, and we didn't want him to walk out, and we're going for, we already had it in our sights, we're going for 9 and then 10, and it was always going for the 10, and we were in that process, and he left during a season. And at that point, there was a huge backlash, and it was directed at Brendan Rodgers. But with time, what we've seen, anybody who didn't figure it out at the time, I think I've come round to the way thinking that, it's not a Brendan issue. It definitely is not a Brendan issue. So if anything was to happen this time around, the biggest issue I think the club will have is that, they don't have that buffer of, but the gaffer let us down and walked out. I think fans are far more wise to what's happening. It'll be a tsunami with loads of sharks surfing on the tsunami, Jim, if it was to happen.
I think also, just going back to the very first point about social media, fans are far more informed now. Now, obviously, there's a lot of kind of misinformation out there, but there's a lot of information out there. And fans can, have if you get back to Stephen Fletcher's situation, back in Gordon Strachan,
I know.
If he signs Stephen Fletcher, we do 4 in a row. We do 4 in a row, then maybe they go out of business a few years earlier.
I don't even think it's a maybe. Jim, I think it's pivotal, right? That if you bring up Stephen Fletcher and you look at where Rangers were at that point, Rangers went on to win 3 in a row.
Yes. Yeah.
3 in a row. After Strachan, right, had done his 3 in that 4th season, where we're going for Stephen Fletcher, and I think our business was terrible. We ended up signing Willow Flood in the January. No disrespect to Willow Flood. We needed the goals. And when you look at that table and the amount of draws we had leading into the end of that season, Jim, and you look at Fletcher, you think to yourself, just push the boat out, remove the ego clash between you and Rod Petrie or whatever the situation is, and sign that player. Because what then happened?
Clash was between Peter Law and Rod Petrie. And then you fast forward to Brendan Rodgers first time around. The John McGinn's, what I've never advocated, never, ever, ever, is to spend hundreds of money. I've always advocated get value for money. You don't have to spend a lot. You have to spend smart, etc. So the John McGinn thing, we should have made that work. It wasn't costing because a lot of money. Again, it was Rod Petrie still there when John McGinn was.
Wouldn't surprise me.
So those things have cost us and have cost us big. Basically, not signing John McGinn cost us 10 in a row. If you join all the dots.
Well, that's what led to the unravelling, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. So if the manager who went to Peter Long said, I want to sign this player for 12 million quid, I could well understand Peter Long saying, you're on the plums here. But I want to sign John McGinn for 4 million. We only want to go to 3.5, however it was, and we don't get him. And he's a future Scotland captain, and he's going to take over from Scott Brown. And even a blind man could have saw that. I know. Basically, why didn't you do that? And you have cost us that. And that's the frustrating thing, that we don't do things that are obvious. We do the opposite. And then when bad things happen, are we surprised? No, we're not surprised. And that's why I think when you look back at what happened then, obviously it got to the point that, and he just felt, enough's enough. I've been given a decent offer here. I'm off, I'm looking after myself. He wasn't that bothered about doing 10 in a row. If he did 10 in a row, then, people would be, saying, not as good as Jock Stein. Certainly second only to Jock Stein. He's done 10 in a row. Brendan Rodgers is here for 10 in a row. Brilliant. But as a manager looking after his own space, I'm getting messed about here. I can't sign the players I want to sign. I've been given this offer from somebody down the road 2 or 3 times my wages. I'm off. You can't blame him. And you can't blame him this time, should that come to pass. And I think, what you said about the kind of 2 things that would really kind of bolster the confidence at the moment is if he signs a new contract, even just a 1-year extension, Maeda signs a contract, then the whole mood kind of changes.
Oh, you imagine that, and then you qualify and you get the bodies in, Jim. And like you say, we're not asking them to go out and spend 50 million quid here. We know where we are in the food chain of world football, global football, but there has to be more of an investment than what has been made already. Jim, there will be people listening to this saying, I can't believe you're still talking about Fletcher and McGinn. The long-standing issues that these failures created, you go back to Fletcher, and we don't know if we would have won the league. We would have had more of a chance of winning the league. And if Gordon Strachan wins that 4 in a row, if Rangers don't go on that run of 3 in a row, you're absolutely right. The walls are closing in even quicker on Rangers. 2012 happens before it happens. That's basically, if you were to look back, that's what's the dominoes start falling a lot quicker. When you then look at the McGinn one, the relationship between Brendan Rodgers and Celtic, or Brendan Rodgers and Peter Lawwell, started to unravel. because he didn't get these guys that he wanted. And like you say, it wouldn't have taken a football genius to realise that McGinn had to be signed. I've said this before, and this isn't because of my knowledge of football. I was told to watch John McGinn. I was at a game and I was told by Jack McGinn, who I met before the game, watch that wee guy. And it was then that I realised that it was obviously his grandson. He was brilliant. He was 17-year-old, playing for St Mirren. I think Tommy Craig or Danny Lennon were the manager at the time. And what an incredible prospect he was, Jim. We all knew it. My concern again is, I'm going to go back to this, and the next time I speak to Mark, I'll mention it to him. But Mark Guidi has said that Brendan Rodgers was desperate to sign Lennon Miller in January. He said that during the week there on Go Radio, right? And I don't think I've got any examples anyway of Mark being a sensationalist when it comes to it. We know that there are pundits out there, Jim, who say things because they know they're going to get the clicks and they become pantomime villains and all this. Mark Guidi's not in that category. I find him really quite balanced. But he said that Brendan Rodgers was desperate to sign Lennon Miller. Celtic didn't get the deal over the line in January. So we're still there. We're still at that point.
Again, I suppose we're going to find out things that we haven't heard before. And the thing about me, what I would have said is that as a kind of just a punter looking in, that I'd find it difficult for Lennon Miller to enter that Celtic midfield. But if you said the manager's desperate to sign him, that trumps anything that any fans is going to say. If he wants him and didn't get him, and he's went for, is it 4 million? He's went for 4.5 million, something like that.
4.75, yeah.
So basically, what you're saying is that a journalist said that he knows the manager desperately wanted one of the brightest prospects in Scottish football for many a year, and we could have got him, and the manager wants him, and we didn't get him. And I'll get back to what I said before about, I don't know who's responsible for that, but there'll be no accountability for that. And what will happen will be the manager will walk, and that will be what will happen. The off-field failures, even though we might go and win the league this year, he will maybe not stay beyond. I mean, just imagine if we supported the guy. I'm not saying we signed £15 million players. Imagine we supported him and encouraged him. You know, there are limits to this. But if he wanted £4 million to sign Lennon Miller, we didn't give him it. I think that's astonishing. Personally, I wasn't that bothered. From a fan's point of view, I was kind of a bit blasé about Lennon Miller. Do we sign him or not? I wasn't that bothered because I'm a good midfield. But if you're telling me the manager desperately wanted to sign him and didn't get him, then somebody has to be accountable for that. They have to be.
The thing as well that I would say, back in the kind of 90s when Italian football was in vogue again, a big part of that down to Channel 4, a lot of what they were doing, I spent a lot of money at the time, the clubs, but a lot of what they were doing, Jim, is they were buying a lot of young Italian talents and loaning them straight out. And I look at Lennon Miller, and I agree with you. I don't think, Paulo Bernardo's until obviously now has been the Portugal under-21 captain. He's a very good player, and he can't get into the team. He can't get a sniff. He's never played a minute of football. And it's not about saying, Lennon Miller will become a better player than Paulo Bernardo. I'm sure he will. But what I would have done is I would have bought the player. Even if I loaned him right out to Italian football, Jim, I'd have bought the player. You're his parent club, and you know what? The Italians might want to buy him for even more if you're, that way inclined when you're looking at the board in a year or two's time. But he's away to Udinese. You wish him all the best. I'll keep an eye on that. I think Italian football now for Scottish football fans is an incredible spectacle.
And also, that's also part of the speculate to accumulate. But again, if we had no money, you would say, well, we can't really afford that. But we've got all that money and we're paying quite a big tax bill. Just paid quite a big tax bill there. So the idea of £4 million for Lennon Miller and loan him to Bologna, whoever it was, and they like him and want to sign him for £10 million, you've speculated. And even if you think, no, we want him back because he's some player. He's a regular on the Scotland team now. Mm-hmm. So I struggle with this stuff. Obviously, never been involved at any kind of level, any kind of club. I just struggle with the lack of common sense. What is the reason for not doing that? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you support your manager? When you've got the boy in, why wouldn't you then do what you've just said there? Why wouldn't you do that? And whose decision was it not to do that?
I know.
They have to take some accountability for this. I don't know what you can do with that. Last time we were on, you mentioned boycotts and all this kind of stuff, which, there must be lots of moneyed Celtic fans out there who are not happy with what's happening just now. All the punters like me and you and you pay your money and you buy your season ticket. These will be guys who are in the executive club, who'll be box holders, who'll have maybe some major shareholders. They can't be happy at this. In fact, that's the only way you can change things. I think you said it yourself. That's the only way you can change things. It's for these guys to think, enough's enough. Enough's enough here. We need to change things, because the boycott thing, as I said last time, it's about saying sack the board, we'll have a boycott. It's too vague. It's too, and the people who say that, you think, well, once you ask them a couple of questions, then the argument disappears.
Yeah.
Who's going to organise this boycott? Right. And what is it you want to achieve? And how do you know when you've achieved? How do you actually measure that? Right. And how do you coordinate all that stuff? And how's that going to work? And, it's like people, the Declan McConvilles, Natasha Meikles never miss a game. And somebody in Manchester saying, you need to boycott the game. I go to the games. I pay my money. You tell me to boycott. How dare you tell me to boycott the game? Don't buy the pies. I never eat the pies. It just, when you get into that kind of debate, there's nothing there. Let's pick the Falkirk game. People won't go to the game tonight because it's a Friday night. If you're coming from Ireland, it's too much hassle to get here. People look at it and say, it's the League Cup. I'm not that bothered. If you're on the home cup, ticket seem like me, you've got a ticket anyway. So I'll go tonight because I've got a ticket and I'll go. So I'm not going to boycott. And how would you even know there was a boycott? So all that stuff is just, it's never going to work. It's too vague. It's too messy. Money changes things. And there are people there with money. The guys that kind of, I don't know, the Willie Hawkeys, the David Lowe's, the Stephen Craig's of this week, guys with serious dosh. And there must be, you could easily get, I don't know how much it would cost to buy it there, but you could easily get 50 Celtic fans who are worth £1 million each, or whatever, if they want to come together and do something and get the support behind them, because that would be the key thing, I think. If you really want to change, these are the guys that would have to want to change things, and they would have to then build up, like Fergus did, they would have to build up some sort of support within the support to say, well, we'd like to do this, guys, do you support us? Aye, and then you might get the banners coming up with the red, no entries and all this kind of stuff. As long as that's done peacefully, then there's no issue with that. But to me, if you want change, that's how you're going to change it, because there's too much money involved just now that you're never going to change things. And it's a laudable thing. I'm not happy the way things are going to go just now. If there was some coherent, organised, structured boycott that somebody was trying to put through, then I'd be supportive of that. But I'd like to see what it is, because it's just knee-jerk stuff.
It's knee-jerk, Jim. And I always go back to...
Billy Connolly, do something. Do something.
Well, there was an outcome. The last time Celtic fans boycotted games, there was a specified outcome, because we knew why we were doing it, and we knew what the figure was in relation to attendances. If it dropped below that, the overdraft would be called in. If you were to do it right now, what's the outcome? You get the...
What's the specific objective? Yeah. What's the specific objective? Is it to buy a £50 million player? So once you do that, objective sorted, boycott stops. Is it to buy 5 players? What is the objective here? And I think the objective is do something, and it's too vague and it's too woolly. We all want the club to be better. We all want them to spend a bit of money. My opening gambit here was I think we have failed the manager, because to me, as I said, every transfer window, 2 new first team starters net of any outgoings. And I think we do that. There needs to be some sort of structure, which I don't see. Maybe there is. I just don't know about it. But even think the Maeda thing, to me, in my simple mind, I'd have thought, if you sign a player, you put them on a 4-year contract, after year 2, if they're doing really well, renegotiate that, extend the contract, pay them more money. If they don't sign, sell them. That's the policy. Go with that. And even if it's a Dazn Maeda who's a brilliant season, do I think he'll have as good a season this season? No, I don't. So if you're going to sell him, this is the peak time to sell him. I'm not saying we should sign him, sell him. However, I think what we should be doing is giving him more money and extending his contract. If he doesn't want to do that, I would think under normal circumstances, and we're not in normal circumstances now because we're desperate now. But if we were kind of had signed all these new starters, first team starters, and had some sort of coherent policy, and we had a bench with maybe like 3, 4, 5 players who would be confident in any game to come on, then we wouldn't be as desperate to keep Maeda. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. No, you're right. We wouldn't be. Jim, if you're talking about increasing buy 2 quality players every season, then if we lose Maeda, and John believes that we will, John Keenan, he thinks that he will get sold. If we do lose somebody like Maeda, we've already lost, let's say, Greg Taylor, we've lost Kuhn, Kyogo, we've lost Jota through injury. So you come into this transfer window and you think, well, we need to replace all 4 of them first, plus 2 on top, if you want to progress. And at the moment, all we've done is we've replaced KT, Greg Taylor with KT. So we've still got the Jota issue, Kuhn and Kyogo to replace. And then once you've got the other 3 quality players in, if you want to progress, Jim, like you say, 2 on top of that. So if you then remove Maeda, then you're looking at another, you're looking at 7 players coming in. So you're right. We're now in that area where it becomes desperate.
Also, whether you like or dislike Engels, Trusty, and Ida, they were all signed this time last year. Mm-hmm. So that, for me, that was a good transfer window. They went in there, and you don't know how things are going to work out. You don't know where the players are going to be. Because you pay a lot of money for them, there's no guarantee. But that, to me, showed an intent. And then we didn't do anything in January. So in January, we should sign a couple of players in January. Net couple of players, because it was Jota and Kyogo out. We should have signed 2 more players, bed them in. We'd have won the cup, chances are. Done a treble. Had those guys in the door. We should have had 2 more. So 2 more guys before the transfer window, when the transfer window opened, before pre-season training this season, sorry, is what I'm trying to say here. So we'd have had 4 new players net in that squad before we kicked the ball in pre-season training. And then we've given the manager the tools that he needs. And if we fail, getting back to that accountability, that's the manager's fault, because we've given you the tools to do the job and you've not done the job. For whatever reason, you're accountable for that. Mm-hmm. Who's accountable for where we are just now? According to, as I said in the group chat, well, basically it's Dermot Desmond's the guy that's stopping it. Because we were talking about, what's the man, Tisdale, man in the hat. We were talking about him. Maybe he's holding, maybe the manager's holding things up. Maybe maybe Peter Law. Who knows? But, whoever it was, you've let the manager down, is where we are just now. And if we manage to get through this Champions League qualifier and win at Ibrox, we've done that in spite of
absolutely
all those people. Mm-hmm. And the manager deserves a huge amount of credit if we manage to do that. But I think it'll still go, because also his reputation's at stake here. And
it's recurring. It's a recurring issue. And the first press conference he gave, which we were at, Jim, and he was asked about coming back, he said the biggest issue was recruitment. And it was the biggest reason he came back was because he was told that we had sorted that out. He had a meeting with Callum McGregor, and McGregor was going on about all the quality that we'd brought in, and things were different, Jim. This is what the dream was, that he was sold. Things were different. And what he's found gradually is that they're not. They're absolutely not. In fact, he found it in his first window. This is not negativity, ladies and gents, but because it's not just the fans saying this, it's the directors of other companies. So obviously Jacob Breun was a player of interest, and the director of that particular club came out and said that Celtic should have been more like Rangers in their dealings. Now that's embarrassing. He then finished off that sentence by laughing, ha ha, says he. And ex-players, Benjamin Seagrass comes in and talks about, sorry Jim, you're laughing.
He didn't say we are the people, no.
No, he didn't sign it off with that. With a wee Union Jack emoji.
He was the best of the people. Thank you. Good night.
So it isn't just the fans, it's directors of other clubs that we're dealing with. It's ex-players whose moves were delayed because we sat on deals getting done for up to a month in Benji Seagrass' case. So there is a trend. It's not just us moaning for the sake of moaning, Jim. It's out there, and there's other parties coming in and saying there's something quite not right about Celtic and recruitment.
Fans will always point the finger, and the finger of blame, and we're not sure who to point the finger to. No matter what happens, we will point fingers. A bad performance, we'll point the finger at the manager for the team selection or the player for not being very good. We'll do that no matter what, because that's the nature of the football fans. We just want to point fingers of blame, and I'm certainly confused to who I'm pointing here. I'm not going to point it to the manager because I think he's blameless with this. I'm not going to point to the players. If he has to pick Yang, I'm not going to get on Yang's back because he's the only guy we've got at this point in time to go and play that position. So I'm not going to point fingers at them. And I would never boo the team. I'd never, all that kind of stuff. But I'd like to know who's responsible, and I'd like them to be accountable. I'd like them to fall on their sword to say, you know what? It was my fault, guys. You're out. You're away. Wherever you are. Now, if it's Desmond, nobody can say, you're out, mate. The big hook comes on. The only way you can change that is the aforementioned people with a bit of money who are as fed up as we are about this. And it's not, the thing is, if it's a one-off thing, you would say, fair dues, it's a one-off, but it's a recurring thing.
Constant.
And we bring up Fletcher because, I mean, get back to young Patrick. If he doesn't remember Sean Maloney, he wouldn't remember Stephen Fletcher. He wouldn't remember the context of that. You know, where we're winning in the league, Gordon Strikers need a striker, and we get Willow Flood, the midfield players, with all due respect, journeyman, and we go in and lose the league by a couple of points. And we drew about the last 3 or 4 games. In the last half a dozen games, we drew 3 of them. And a striker would have won us the league. So the board cost us that. You go back to, there's a play called If You Know the History next August. In that, I talk about the fact that you go back to Graham Souness's first season, Davy Hay, 9 points clear at Christmas.
Yep.
You mentioned Jack McGinn. Jack McGinn's the chairman. Davy Hay goes to Jack McGinn and says, I need a couple of defenders. Well, if you want to spend that, spend your own money. Quote, unquote, said, we're going to lose the league in Graham Souness's first season, the Souness revolution. Unfortunately, we managed to get the league back the following season, but then it all went pear-shaped. But the point was that the manager knows best when it comes to recruiting players. It's up to the board to support them. And I get maybe where the old board were coming from to say, we've no money. We've no money, that's why we can't do that. But this board, we've got hundreds of money.
This is it. This is it.
Now, I'm not saying we should spend it unwisely, caveat. And I keep saying that. And that's the debate I'll have with people that says that I say that, no, we shouldn't have to spend 10, 15 million players if we know what we're doing. And Benji Green is a perfect example of that. Aaron Moy was a perfect example. Yeah, 1 or twice you might have to go big, but in the main, if you've got good recruitment, if you've got good analysis, if you've got good scouts, all that sort of stuff, do we have all that? You listen to people like Alan Morrison, who says we are miles off it when it comes to that. Off-field inefficiencies, but that on-field success is masking all that. And it's only when that stops, the wound will be open to say, how did this happen? Who's hit for that?
Tsunami thing.
Who can we point to? But that point is too late. Because it's happened. This is what the COVID season. They let Neil Lennon, hang. It was far too late. So this is a kind of negative rant. So I want to turn back on that and just say that we have seen this movie too many times before. And I think the punchline to my story is that whatever happens this season, I don't blame the manager. And if the manager was to leave tomorrow, I wouldn't blame him.
Couldn't blame him for that either. I mean, you're talking about guys and girls who support Celtic who have personal wealth. And just a few weeks ago, in part 2 of our ongoing series on the channel, we released some archive footage. Brilliant footage, Jim. Absolutely incredible footage. And one of the high points of that footage was Brian Dempsey talking at the Shettleston Halls. And I made the point, actually, when I was watching it back, that he was a guy that was investing. I don't know how much back in those days. Every single year he was investing in Celtic on a corporate level. So he had a box at Celtic Park. And when he was doing his brilliant speech, go and check it out if you haven't seen it already, he pointed out that he noticed a few other people who were corporate box holders in the audience. There are always people. All you need to do is look at Celtic Park. Look how many corporate boxes are there. And these are people who are self-made most of the time, Jim. That, they've maybe been, an apprentice joiner at one time who then builds up an incredible business. And then, it's one of these points where it's like, right, I've got all this money. Do I pay tax or do I buy a corporate box at Celtic Park? There's, and these people do have money, Jim. And there's a lot of them. And there's a lot of them support Celtic. There always has been. And they're not happy. Just like Brian Dempsey wasn't happy back in the day.
So I think that's such a key point, because Dermot Desmond could look to me and say, what do you know, son? And he'd be perfectly right to say that. But you can't say that to other people who, as you say, have made millions themselves, who ran businesses themselves. A Michael Nicholson or a Peter Law could say to me, what do you know, son? But there's people out there who would dwarf Michael Nicholson and Peter Law, Celtic fans that are going to the game thinking, if I was in there, I'd be doing A, B, C. Because you know what? Because I've done A, B, C, and D in the past. And I'm paying all this money, and I could do better than these guys. I'm not a fan. I don't mean I'm just an ordinary fan. You and me couldn't do any better than what's happening just now because we don't have the experience doing that.
Exactly.
There's guys out there that do have the experience and do have the money to come in and do that. And I think, as I said, I don't know how much it would cost to buy out either the major shareholder or some of the people who've got decent shareholdings. But if it was 50 million quid, as I said, can you get 50 Celtic fans worth £1 million each if we want to chuck it in? You can't take it with you. So if they were that annoyed and that frustrated with what's happening, what's £1 million to some of these guys? Who knows? But that's the only way that you can affect change, I think. And anyway, I'm a bit of a moan.
No, not at all, Jim. It's something we need to speak about because it's a much larger picture than just, we're no signing players, do something. And I think when you dig into it and you use some of the past experiences and you refer to them, I think it really is pertinent. And it's good to get a voice like yourself who was there back in those days. IH Decorating, always great to see popping up on the YouTube comments. Tuning in to Axom from sunny Parga in Greece, 36 heat, but the beer is cold. He's rubbing it in, Jim. He's rubbing it in. The weather's no bad here.
It's sunny in Glasgow just now. I've got the windows open, so it's sunny here.
It's
so,
sunny. Yeah, you enjoy yourself.
36 is too hot. You want to be in sunny Glasgow. That's the place to be.
You enjoy yourself over there in Greece. Love going over to Greece. Gordon Coney, to the sad individuals who thought taking to social media and making harsh and uncalled for comments about a young girl living her dream, shame on you, Gordon. You're absolutely right. It is shocking. And by the way, in real life, very, very rarely do you see these people or hear from them. I mean, they walk among us, but they are the epitome of the keyboard warrior. They don't tell you this kind of stuff to your face, Jim.
They're living their best life. They're living their best life. That's it.
What did you do this weekend? I just sat on Twitter annoying people.
What did you do today, Dad?
You're right. I know.
See that wee commandment last year? I told her. Aye. Well done, Dad.
I know. Proud of you, Dad. I just want to be like you, mate. Square Sausage Mick or Slice Sausage Mick if you're in Greenock. Rodgers improved us in the Champions League. We didn't get lucky, so back the manager further. I agree with you. But Mick, the problem we've got at the moment is we are weaker than we were when we finished that campaign, and we shouldn't be. Robert Duck, I predict a strong team and performance. We're talking, of course, about tonight. It's Falkirk this evening, and I'm quite interested to see how we line up. Because there has been occasions in the past, Jim, where you think Brendan Rodgers will try something a bit different. We've got guys who probably need the game time. I think Bernardo, the aforementioned Bernardo, Maeda, maybe getting a start. And the other one I would throw into the equation would probably be Simpson Pusey. I don't think he would start the game, but we might see a debut for him. Can you see Brendan Rodgers making big changes? He was impressed with Falkirk last season when they came to Celtic Park. They went ahead twice against us in the Cup.
They were great last year. I think the first half of the season, they were the best team who came. Well, apart from the European games, obviously. But domestically, I think they were the best team who played. I think we were winning 2-1 with 20 minutes to go before Ida and Kuhn came on. And they're a better team than they were last season. They've won the league. So, it won't be an easy game. It's not as if we're playing some team for League Two. So it's a bit of a kind of, I think it's difficult tonight. You want to get legs in some of the players. And maybe want to rest some of the guys who, kind of Kieran Tierney and Carter Vickers, who seem to get injured or susceptible to injury, particularly with this game next week coming on. What I'd like, I know he wouldn't do it, but what I'd like to see is a complete change of formation. Because the winger situation is concerning. So let's just scrap that idea. Let's just go 4-4-2. And the reason I'm saying that is I think we've got 6 good midfield players chasing 3 spots. Mm-hmm. Make an extra spot for them. 6 into 4. Do that. Play a diamond. Play Negan at the top of the diamond. Carl at the bottom, and play, if it's Engels on the right, Atati on the left. You can bring on another 2 guys at some point. Everyone's getting a game. I think either would do well with a partner up front. And whether that's Maeda or whether it's Shin, if that's his name, stick a couple up front, take a bit of the weight off the big man, and forget the wingers. Because I just think the concern that I've had, I think most Celtic fans have had the past couple of weeks, we've got no wingers and Maeda's better through the middle. So we're struggling for wingers. Let's just scrap the wingers idea and let's just go 4-4-2. Mm-hmm. Tonight would be a perfect night to maybe try that out to see how it worked. And if they did do that, and if maybe Maeda and Shin both scored, boost their confidence as well. So I'd like to see something like that. That would give me more confidence into the Champions League and playing that kind of formation than it would playing Yang in one wing and Maeda in the other wing. And obviously there's a lot of chat about Maeda and whether he might be leaving, and there's some strong rumours that he might be going. And his start to the season been a bit underwhelming. So we don't have last year's Maeda yet, but he's playing in the wing. So to me, maybe just scrap that idea. Maybe it's Maeda and Ida up the middle.
I like the idea of that. So Maeda assists Maeda and Maeda assists Maeda. Absolutely. I mean, both of those players, I think, look a little bit bereft of confidence, which is a strange one because, and like you say, just marry them up. And it's not just about doing it for the sake of it. We're in a situation, Jim, like you say, we've got a lot of quality in midfield, and we don't have the same bodies on the wing. So let's try and mix it up a lot. I'd love to see that. It would actually be quite exciting tonight to see that change. And again, Friday night football under the lights against Falkirk. So we'll be covering the game half an hour before kickoff as usual. And this is Axom's on tonight at 6 o'clock. At some point in the future, that level of scheduling, 3 hours a day, can you imagine Axom doing that every day? Because that is the aim. Eventually, we'll be able to do that every day. It'll all be free. It'll just be like, what's on that Celtic channel today? Fire it on. Content.
Who's ranting today? Yes.
Who's ranting today? Yeah.
Today's rant is
sponsored by. There we go.
Thanks for tuning in. Madness. Yeah,
you mentioned something before about who's held accountable, and it goes back to this age-old discussion that we've had on here so many times, Jim, about engagement and speaking and communicating to your fans. Well, I'm going to bring this up because I think it's there's a couple of things. I'm going to bring up a tweet by Livingston, and I'm going to bring up a tweet which is quite a humorous tweet, I've got to say, and another one from Hibernian. So I'm going to start off with Hibs because you mentioned there about football clubs engaging with the fans. So here we go. So Hibs have put this out. And obviously they had a very good night last night. Hibs sold out Easter Road, I noticed. Some incredible goals were scored. If you meet Partizan Belgrade in Europe, you're going to see goals. I think that's what we would be led to believe if you look at our performance against them back in the 90s. So Hibs came out and said, the new Chief Executive Officer, Dan Barnett, is excited about the future of Hibernian Football Club. Read his first interview with Hibs TV below. And then there's the wee quote there. He says, I think first and foremost, the fans are a priority for me. The fans here are unique and incredible. I think it's really important to have lots of conversations with the fans and let them know they've got a voice. Wow. Who knew? Who knew, Jim, that is what a chief executive officer should do at a football club? Have we not been shouting from the rooftops for a wee bit of that from Celtic?
I don't think they're unique because we're a club like no other. So we're unique. I think every club is unique. You know, every club is a club like no other. They've got their history and everything to go with it. I watched the game last night and it was great. It was great watching the game. Bowie's goal, outstanding. So glad they get through. Shame at Dundee United. But what did occur to me last night is if the more Scottish teams that get through, then the more Sunday games there's going to be. Mm-hmm. So that's a bit of a downside of too many teams in that Conference League. But yeah, great to see them get through, and the atmosphere looked great, and they did really well. It's always good to see Scottish teams get through. Helps the coefficient. Those last night didn't because they lost the game. But yeah, I think it's good for people to come out. I mean, we just want a bit more communication, a bit more engagement. That's obviously playing to the fans. The fans are the most important thing. We know that. But yeah, good on him.
No, good on him. And the reason I bring it up is because I think it's a good example. The goal scored last night, obviously, by Kieran Bowie has gone viral due to its quality and its class. I just want to point out that he, like Ollie Burke and Jockey Wilson, was also born in Kirkcaldy in Fife. So I don't know if there's a link between all these phenomenal talents. Burke, obviously, the most expensive Scottish footballer ever. If you accumulate all his fees, there we go. Tongue in cheek, of course. The other one was Livingston. So let's bring up Livingston. Livingston brought up this little natty graphic. Celtic tickets are available, says Livingston, for their trip to Glasgow. And look at the picture, Jim. Talking of tongue in cheek, look what they've done. They've basically said you buy a ticket for Parkhead and this is your view. And I've got to say, JP Taylor has got one of the most difficult jobs at Celtic Football Club. He is the football fans liaison officer, and we probably should have 12 of him, but we've got one of him. And this was his response: you forgot to include the supporter parking info, because obviously they bring about 6 fans. So there you go, you can fit them all in one parking space. A wee bit of humour, Jim, never goes amiss. So well played, JP Taylor.
I like the Livingston one. I think that's fair enough, because I mean, I think, I've sometimes been not in my own seat for some reason. You end up with this terrible view, whatever. So, and that's where the way fans go. So I get that. I'm not so sure we should respond. I think we should just leave it, and we'll take it on the chin, because that's what we do, rather than having a go at. As I said, every club's unique. Livingston's unique. You know, the fact they don't have many fans, that's not their fault. You know, I'm sure they try their best. It's always a point I make all the time, is the fact that you imagine trying to be the chief executive of Livingston and trying to drum up sponsorship, trying to drum up money for players,
deals, absolutely,
trying to all this stuff. You know, compared to if you're chief executive of Celtic, where Adidas are fawning over you, and but how difficult that is. And I just think, I suppose, like any company in the world these days, it's a hard shift, and they punch above their weight. No matter what you think of Livingston or style of football, which apparently has been changed this season, you have to say hats off to them. I wouldn't like them in the league, because I don't think I want all the big teams in the league, and I'm not trying to soak up here, but someone like Dunfermline, for example, and Morton and Partick Thistle, those are I think they're not that far off it this season. I think maybe Falkirk and Livingston would be the 2 teams. If they weren't there and we had maybe Dunfermline and Morton, maybe, you're thinking of areas where
what about the Jags?
Population.
The Jags as well. I know that, you know, in terms.
Well, you can say Thistle because of the Glasgow thing, but I kind of, you would like to think. The thing again, I'm going to do old man stuff and talk about things that even you won't remember. But when Alec Ferguson went to St Mirren, he just regenerated everything. And St Mirren were getting something like 12,000 fans, because he was around housing schemes when allowed Taylor come and see St Mirren, and he brought them up to the top league. And Frank McGarvey was in their team, and Tony Fitzpatrick, Peter Bean, all these kind of guys. All of a sudden, Paisley, 12,000 people. You'd like to think that potential is potentially there for sleeping giants like Dunfermline. I mean, how many years has it been since it's been in the top league? 2012,
they were relegated.
Right, so kind of maybe not almost a generation, but basically, if they come back up and they do the marketing thing, whatever, then all of a sudden it's a big area. Fife as well, Morton and Green's a big area. You know, that's a potential sleeping giant. Ayr United, although their stadiums, I go occasionally to watch Porlock Juniors, and Porlock Juniors drew them in the cup a couple of seasons ago, and it's like a junior ground. I don't know if they've done much since then, but Ayrshire again, you're looking for these, and Falkirk should maybe there's too many teams in Stirlingshire. You want, you know, when you look at Scottish football, you want the big 2 in Glasgow, the big 2 in Edinburgh, the big 2 in Dundee, Aberdeen, St Mirren, St Johnstone as well. You want St Johnstone back, even though they get terrible crowds. They should have far more than they are.
Bizarrely, though,
down to the club.
Their season tickets are up this season in the Championship. Their season tickets.
Well, you tend to find that when you've got a chance of winning something, people come back. Remember, Hibs went down, and all of a sudden, I think they'd sold double the season tickets. Because, and that's my argument about if the big 2 were to leave Scottish football, then Hibs have got a chance to win the league. Aberdeen have got a chance to win the league. And if I'm a fan, I think I would want that. I think if I was a Hibs fan, I'd want to know at the start of the season we can win the league, as opposed to being also rans. As opposed to going to Celtic Park, restricted view, and getting it doing, you know, and that's why I think that I don't want the big 2 to go down south. I'd be happy with some sort of North Atlantic League or some sort of European League, and Scottish football hopefully would find its level. And it did nights like last night where it was bouncing, where Hibs are going for the league. Then, you know, it's Hibs and Hearts neck and neck at the top of the league. And I'd like to think that would generate it. And I would maybe watch a Hibs game now and again. If Celtic went in that league, you'd maybe pick a team that'd be a Scottish team out with Celtic. Anyway,
that's an
discussion for another day.
No, that's a really interesting one. I think the big thing now, you brought them up. You brought them up, Jim. Dunfermline Athletic. Back in the day, the guy with a loudspeaker was Jim Leishman. He was the guy getting in and about the communities and the housing schemes at Fife. And he drummed up an incredible amount of support. And you look at the attendances. He took them from the bottom division right up to the Premier League. And you look at the attendances back then in the early 90s, incredible attendances, late 80s, early 90s. What they do have at the moment is a figurehead in Neil Lennon. They've got Neil Lennon at the helm. And he's a guy that really is, he's really got an excitement around Dunfermline Football Club. I've got a lot of friends who support the Pars. But one of the things, we brought up Hibs, we brought up Livingston. I'm going to bring up Dunfermline because they've done a great thing. I'm going to bring this up. And I know some of the guys that work up there, and they work tirelessly because some of them are just volunteers. But they came up with this incredible idea. I interviewed Richard Jobson on A Celtic State of Mind. One of my favourite interviews that I've ever done, Jim, right? Richard Jobson, of course, who was the frontman of Skids. And their big hit, or one of their big hits, was
Into the Valley.
Into the Valley. And Into the Valley is used at a number of different football clubs, one of which is Charlton Athletic. But for anyone who doesn't know, Dunfermline have used that as their kind of entrance song for a number of years now, Jim. So Richard Jobson's always, I think, been very supportive of Dunfermline, coming from Logelly, coming from this area. But Richard Jobson's a Celtic fan, and I interviewed him, and he's a St. Pauli fan, like old school, 1980s, old school St. Pauli fan. And I interviewed him. The Jobson family are an incredible family. I'm going to digress slightly here for a moment before I get to the point. So Richard Jobson comes from Logelly. His old man, like my dad, was a pitman, right? And Richard's old fellow was a Hibs fan, and he was a poet. But you don't admit that when you worked in the pits, Jim. That you write poetry, it just wasn't the done thing. But obviously,
okay, good. Right, okay.
A pit poet, yeah, I'm a very creative guy. But check this out, right? So he's got 5 laddies, he's got 5 boys. So can you imagine the dynamic in a council house in Logelly with 5 boys growing up, right? So you've got Richard Jobson. Everybody knows who Richard Jobson is. Incredible front man with Skids. But he's an author, he's a director, he's an actor, he's a model, he's an unbelievable figure. And he was a great interviewee when he appeared on Axom a few years back. You've got Michael, who's also appeared on A Celtic State of Mind. Michael became a tour manager, having roadied for Skids back in the day. He ended up being a roadie for bands like Susie and the Banshees and guitar tech for Echo and the Bunnymen. And before you know it, he's playing bass guitar on the solo albums of Ian McCulloch. He then becomes a tour manager and manages acts like Avicii, Amy Winehouse, Richard Ashcroft. This is all from a tiny wee house in Logelly. You then move on to John Jobson, who's also appeared on A Celtic State of Mind. Check out his interview. Now, John Jobson was the centre forward for Meadowbank Thistle, who would score 40 goals a season, and he was John Peel's favourite footballer, John Jobson. There you go. Francis was a bit of a punk back in the day who became a Buddhist monk. This all came from a house in Logelly. And Brian owns one of the trendiest and coolest barbers in Dunfermline. So there you go. And Richard goes and gets his hair cut there. I bumped into him not that long ago. So an incredible dynamic. But anyway, it takes me on to the point. So Dunfermline have released this, and it was out yesterday. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's in tribute to Skids. There you go. So there's the front cover of Scared to Dance, which was one of their most revered albums. And Dunfermline have modelled their jersey on the album. Check that out. That's a little bit different, right? Look at that. Absolutely tremendous. So fair play to them. And there's some of the details. That's actually Richard Jobson's handwriting, Into the Valley. Beautiful. And a bit unusual on the back of the neck. You've got Skids there. So you've got all these wee clubs, Jim, with brilliant creative people working for them. Some of them are volunteers, but they're doing it right. You've got a bit of humour from Livingston. You've got the chief executive telling the Hibs fans what they want to hear, and hopefully he follows it through. And you've got the Pars guys coming together for an incredible release of this jersey. Fair play.
I think the point of that story is you go to the trendiest barber in Fife, and so anyone who has a go at your wig, you can then say, I go to the trendiest barber in Fife, and you can ask the Jobson guy because he cuts my hair.
The boy Jobson.
So yeah, brilliant. Football. I put a wee video up at my dementia football. We had the oldest guy there, 93, and we managed to get this wee boy who was like 4, and I got them to have a kickabout with each other. That's what football's about. Football's about.
I've seen that post. That was brilliant.
Just that's what football's about. It's about the Livingston minibus coming to Celtic Park with 10 people in it. It's about the Falkirk fans that are going tonight. All clubs are unique. All clubs are like no other, and we should never talk down about football clubs. Maybe apart from one, but because football, football brings us all together. I'm sounding like Dalai Lama here. Football brings us all together, and money has ruined it, basically. So I love those stories about Dunfermline. Man U signed somebody for £75 million this week. Horrendous, obscene, terrible over there. Dunfermline's new jersey into the valley. Sums up.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And one final thing to say, a little bit of information there, is that John Jobson, former centre forward for Meadowbank Thistle, his grandson Manny Jobson, until recently was on Celtic's books, so a young promising footballer. And Manny, who he was named after, is our guest on Sunday night at Barazat Design. And I'm literally probably fewer than 5 tickets left. It's a sellout. There's a couple there. If you're quick enough, you might get them. Texting Manny back and forward over the last 48 hours. He is buzzing to be coming to Glasgow, and I've got a nice wee Celtic gift for him as well. So I'm looking forward to Sunday.
What a brilliant link. Well done, that, man. You'd obviously
seamless.
A professional there.
You almost threw me with the big talk, but I stuck to my guns.
So the next gig you do, you'll be saying he's called his son John Hartson. And funny enough, John Hartson disappeared.
Exactly. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. It always is with Jim Orr. Thanks everybody for getting involved. We're still at 1900 live on a Friday afternoon. We'll be back half an hour before kickoff tonight. But before then, 6 o'clock on the channel. This is Axom with the Celtic World Order boys. Come and join us on there. Until then, thanks for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.